Hello, everyone. Welcome back to College Football Corner. Week 3 is done. Week 4 is around the corner. And I think when you look back at Week 3, clearly there were some things that you thought might change as we headed into Week 4. One of the big ones coming this morning, more of yesterday, though, was the announcement that Jeremy Johnson will not be the Auburn starting quarterback heading into the Mississippi State game. Just watch Gus Malzahn's press conference. Listen to some of the beat reporters, too, what they had to say about it. And it's funny because we filmed College Football Corner, the TV show that airs every Tuesday, ahead of time before this information came out. But I think we all kind of had the same feeling in the back of our minds. Look, this is a very big possibility. Jeremy Johnson just looked. I don't want to criticize a college athlete that heavily, but he was awful. I mean, there's no other way around it. He was just really bad. And this is coming from me, and I had sky-high expectations for him. I said on the show the other day, I don't think I've ever overvalued a player more at the start of a season than I did with Jeremy Johnson. I really thought what he was going to do there at Auburn was going to be special, but what he has done there has been anything but special. The 5 touchdowns, the 6 interceptions has just not been good. I mean, it's the biggest thing is you watch him on the football field, and he just looks lost. There's no other way around it. I mean, people have asked the question, can a non-running quarterback win in Gus Malzahn's system? And clearly with him, that was a big no, a resounding no, that he could not, because really he was just a pure pocket guy when he was playing there, did not make good decisions with the football, did not look like he understood what the defense was trying to show him. He was really telegraphing all of his throws to them, just not going through the right progressions, things like that, trying to keep the defense off edge. It just was not pretty. Something had to change, and Gus Malzahn said it. I think, look, Shaun White, he said, is a guy who's gotten a lot of reps. They have a lot of faith in him. He would not say if he was going to be the permanent starter moving forward. It just basically said, we're taking it one game at a time. Shaun White is our starting quarterback for the Mississippi State game, and then we will evaluate it all moving forward. But I think right now it's pretty safe to say that Shaun White is the guy there, and you couldn't put Jeremy Johnson back out there because you just look at the course of the season so far, and look, he hasn't been helped by Auburn's running game, which has not been good. Which we've seen has been a staple of the Gus Malzahn offensive system his first 2 seasons. The running game has been as dependable. I mean, you had Trey Mason his first year there. Then you go to the next year. You had Cameron Artis-Payne, who was the guy. And now this year, who do you have there? I don't think that right now a back has established themselves as being able to bear the brunt in a lot of the carries that you're going to need to require in a Gus Malzahn offense. But Jeremy Johnson is a non-running quarterback, and that certainly doesn't help. We look a little bit, and the funny thing is Gus kind of drew parallels to his first season, and it is very interesting how both his first season and now his third season as the head coach there at Auburn have played out, because his first season, it was the same story. 3-0, they kind of really flew under the radar at that 3-0, though, and then they lose that game to LSU, and then I think the rest of it is history. We know how historic a run that Auburn team went on and lost to Florida State in the national championship game. But this year it's kind of been the same. Obviously, different circumstances, different situation, different players, but you win the first 3 games. You lose this game to LSU, and who knows with Shaun White? I think none of us have really seen Shaun White, so we don't really know what to expect from him so far. But I think the biggest thing that you've got to think that they're putting him in here for and making him the starter is because of his mobility, which you would think he's got to have better mobility than Jeremy Johnson has. And it's obviously all comes down to the decision-making. I mean, for all you say about Nick Marshall, he wasn't a consistent passing quarterback, but he flawlessly ran that offense. He was a dynamic athlete. He did not turn the ball over a significant amount of time. He was just the perfect guy for that offense, and Jeremy Johnson has not been the guy to follow it up. Will it be Shaun White? It's difficult to say. Mississippi State, this is a tough game again. This is why it is the SEC. You just got beat up on by possibly the best team in college football right now in LSU. Now you've got to bounce back against Mississippi State with a new quarterback, and it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know if I can pick the game right now. I think I still got to think it over a lot more because, again, we've never seen Shaun White. I don't think we know what to expect. even with what Gus Malzahn and everybody said, look, they're going to give you the answers that that you always are expecting to hear. We have a lot of faith in him. He's gotten a lot of first team reps. We think that he's going to be good for us. So obviously that's what's expected, but we don't know. We won't know until we see him take the football field. And again, the one thing that won't help Shaun White, and I don't know if I don't know if the running game for Auburn has not been good because Jeremy Johnson has just been awful and he's not a threat to run as well. And that was always why Auburn was so deadly with Nick Marshall, because defenses could never ever just take a breather, because you never knew what is Nick Marshall going to do. Because we all understand the type of offense that Gus Malzahn tries to run. He has a couple of different options available to him. Is he going to take the ball himself? Is he going to give it to the running back? Are they going to try some trickery play with spacing or something like that? That was always why they were such a dynamic threat and such a matchup nightmare. I mean, you look what Gus did. I mean, he ran the ball effectively against the stout Missouri defense when Gary Pinkel really was bringing it against Alabama, who, again, you name a list of teams who've been able to consistently run the ball against Alabama, you really have one name on there, and that's Gus Malzahn's offense. Right now, it hasn't been, and it's because Jeremy Johnson is not a threat to run the football. You know what he is. He's just big. He's going to try to sit back there in the pocket and then beat you with his big arm strength, but that's not going to work when you're not good with the football, and he clearly is not. He clearly doesn't have an understanding of the situations and what the defense is trying to show him, how he has to move the ball down the field. You couldn't send him back down out there. I mean, it honestly, it was disappointing because I really thought when you looked at his skill set, that was something that was going to make Gus be able to open up this offense even more, because, again, that is the only knock on Nick Marshall, is he was not a consistent passer who was going to beat you with the deep ball. I thought Jeremy Johnson was going to, and that would make the running game easier. It would make even more dynamic playmaking for Gus Malzahn available. But clearly that is not the case we are at. We are here with Auburn, and Shaun White is the new man. It'll be interesting to see how he takes the field. Again, I will have a pick for that game eventually, but I think right now you got to back it up a little bit. You got to think about it, what the course is going to be. But I would take a look at Gus Malzahn's press conference, see the thoughts a little bit, read up a little bit on Shaun White. I've been trying to do a little bit now, but Auburn fans have been calling for Shaun White. I mean, to be quite honest, it's funny, my tweet got retweeted by an Auburn. Somebody actually made a Twitter account for start bench Jeremy Johnson, and my tweet, and I don't think my tweet was too critical. I basically just said, look, I had sky-high expectations for Jeremy Johnson. He has not lived up to them. He looks lost out there right now. He's not the only problem for Auburn. The defense has not lived up to its part of the deal, and then the running game has not helped out Jeremy Johnson. But then at the same time, he deserves a lot of criticism himself because he has just not been good enough. But until we get that game and we see Shaun White for the first time, everything is just speculation. But until then, we will wait and we will see what happens. Back with College Football Corner in a little bit.